Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Stoverload Music Podcast. Guys, thank you so much for supporting the show, but more importantly, thank you for supporting independent music artists. Things are changed. The game has changed. The world is crazy, and everything is just upside down. So one thing that remains for sure is that we all love good music, and we all have our types that we like. And we like to bring you different artists from different varieties and genres all the time. So on behalf of all the artists that you're taking the time out to check out and listen to, they thank you, and I thank you for that. That being said, today I'm bringing a special guest, and this is our next showcase. We're not doing full interview seasons anymore. We're just doing showcases, so the artists get some special treatment, so to say. But today, my guest today, I had the lead singer from a band called Valyear, and I was checking out their work, and I gotta say, I found a couple tracks I really liked, known as Beneath the Machine, Fall to Four, Feed My Pain, and my personal favorite, Like a Zombie. I want you to welcome my guest today. He's the frontman to the band. He's Mr. Chad Valyear. Chad, thanks for coming. It's good to have you, man. How's the game? How's the music business treating you?
It's good, man. Right now, things are peaking. Over COVID, it took a bit of it was downtrodden a little bit, but we picked it back up as soon as we were able to get back out there, and we've been taking advantage of it. Now that we're back, we're hitting hard. So
Did you guys have a lot of momentum and a lot of good stuff going before COVID, or was there
Well,
a
what happened
spike?
was we signed with Wormhole Death Records right before COVID, or right during, or while it was happening. So we did the album, and we couldn't do anything to support it except use social media, right? So we couldn't get any shows in. We had this album we were sitting on, trying to promote it, and you can only do so much without going out there and selling it.
Yeah.
And so we did what we could, but we don't feel we got a fair shot at a fair run. And as soon as it opened back up, we were back out there, and we're just hitting hard now. Like, we're playing everywhere and anywhere, and the crowds have been good. The people have been really receptive to it. People are showing up at the shows now. If they'll start streaming it, we'll be more happy.
That's what matters. I mean, that was the one thing everybody always has, no matter if it's a pandemic or where the world's at, we always got music. And I think a lot of people open up their minds to a lot of new bands and a lot of new music during the pandemic because, well, they didn't really have much else to do. So,
Right. Well, the videos, it's kind of weird because we did this album, and every review we got was like 9 out of 10, and the things that they didn't like about the album were so like minuscule, and I didn't notice the streams really going up, and I didn't understand it. Like, we put out this great album, and like, you always want people to hear it, but I don't know what more we can do to promote it, right? Like,
right.
now that we're out there. So I'm just, anybody that's out there, I mean, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, any of it, get playing it so we can do the next record.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot, there's a lot of good internet radio stations out there that are very adamant and very passionate about supporting independent artists. And I think they have the edge over the streaming
Yeah.
apps.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then the thing is like the streaming apps, like, in order to make $100 from Spotify, you have to have 10,000 plays. And I don't
Yeah.
know, it's basically robbery, but we look at it like expensive advertising. It's a necessary evil, and it drives me insane because it's like, before, if you sold 10,000 albums, you had a career.
Right.
Now to make $100, like, the only way you're making money is if you're Slipknot,
Right.
or bands of that caliber, which, and I mean sales wise, I don't mean playing wise. I mean, there's a lot of bands that are of Slipknot caliber, and that's not a negative thing. There's a lot of great talent out there. There's a lot of great music. And, sadly, they're not making enough money to keep going. And it comes down to, do you want to dedicate 300 days a year to make next to no money? Or do you want to go out and slug it out for 8 to 10 hours a day and make the money and still make the music?
Right.
It's a catch-22, but it separates the men from the boys, right?
Right.
There was a time when you'd sign a record deal for millions of dollars. You send these 20-year-old kids out on tour, and they would just blow everything to smithereens, and that was their career. Now you really have to want to do it. You know what I mean? Because if you're going to make money musically, like I said, unless you're Slipknot or Jay-Z or something like that, you're going to only make, and especially in Canada, you're only going to make as much money as, say, like, a guy who owns his own company. you know? So do you want to be away from your family for 300 days a year to make that money? Or do you want to be able to do it from home?
Right.
Right. So music does, as shitty as it gets, it does separate the men from the boys because yeah, you're going to make music clearly out of love. And it doesn't matter if you have one of those, you know, people think because they have, you know, Pro Tools in their basement that they're making good albums. But that's the equivalent of me thinking I'm taking good pictures because I have Photoshop.
Right.
Right. There's a
Right.
lot more work to it. And you got, you know, and that's why we hire a producer, you know, to make sure that you know our music sounds different from the guy in his basement. And don't get me wrong, there's some good music coming out of some people's basements, you know, but a lot of times if you're not putting that money into it, you're not getting that money out of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think most of the wisdom and most of the knowledge that always came to people to perfect their craft always came from the experience and the time put in. And
Yeah.
everybody could have this stuff handed to them. Like you just said, you know, you could have Photoshop and make badass pictures, but it's like, unless you have an eye and you've put the work in for years, you know exactly
Yeah.
what you're looking for and the concept and the look. You know, anybody can do it, basically, almost.
Yeah, well, they're making it feel like that, but I'm telling you, like, um, I have a hard time, and you know, I've talked about this almost ad nauseum, I think, at times, but and it's nothing to do with bands, but you know, I have a hard time getting through a lot of independent artists' recordings. You know what I mean? Because they're not putting their money in the right areas. They're recording it themselves. There's no outside listener. You know, like I really come from the perspective of would I listen to this if I wasn't in Valyear? Like would I be, you know, would I buy this? Would I want to hear this every day? You know, and a lot of people get caught up in the well, I made this, you know, it's like hanging your own picture on your fridge when you're young, you know, look, mom, I made this picture for you. Isn't it awesome? And it's a bunch of scribbles,
Right.
you know, and I can't, I have to be objective to my own stuff or I'm gonna end up putting like garbage out and I don't want to do that. Right.
And that's definitely respectable. I mean, you want to take pride in your work, you know,
Yeah.
and that says a lot. And I think a lot of people, when they get to a point in their career and what they're doing in this musical journey they're on, I think a lot of people are understanding that as time goes on, there's always trial by error.
Right. And it's okay to make mistakes and everything you write is not going to be gold, right? And as long as you keep that in mind, like then fix it, rewrite it, you know, fix it, rewrite it. There's nothing wrong with, you know, everything you write is not going to be perfect.
Right.
And the problem is like we really beat the shit out of our songs. We get to a point like, you know, if it's not working, it's not working. And we work so well together and we're all such good friends that we know enough to look at each other and go, you know, that's not jiving. Like, you know, that sounds very stock. That sounds very like, you know, that sounds like 15 other bands, you know, and we beat each other up, but we get the best out of it, you know, because we know that everything I come up with vocally is not going to be wonderful. You know, unfortunately, I have guys that are not afraid to call me out on that. And, you know, hey, man, that's not working. I don't like that there. There's no hook there. And then, you know, but too many people get too close to their shit.
Right.
And when you're too close to your own music, you're never going to be able to pick the bugs out of it. And I don't want anyone ever telling me that anything I'm doing is good. If it's not, I don't want to be surrounded by those kinds of people.
Right.
I
Well,
want to be told, you know, hey, man, in any aspect of my life, not only music, you know, I don't want to be surrounded by yes men, you know.
so yeah, you want constructive. You're open to constructive criticism.
Oh yeah, I have to be. If you're not thick skinned and you can't take criticism, you're in the wrong business.
Well, that doesn't just apply to the business. I think that applies to the whole damn world right now with the way things
Right.
are.
Yeah.
But
Or you're
it's
gonna put out
exactly
shitty
true.
music. Right.
Right, right. I mean, so you know, you find some music you like and some that you don't. That's just how it is. To each their own.
And you're okay. It's okay to not like music. Like I don't particularly like a lot of very successful bands. You know, I find some of it very watered down. I find some of it getting very generic. I find a lot of music right now, it's really hard to get for me to be interested in something because it's very rare that somebody's doing something new for me. And I'm finding myself, and I'm, you know, metal fans and my rock fans are going to be, you know, give me a beating over this, but I'm finding myself straying away from the music I make, like that, the style. Like I'm listening to a lot of more poppy stuff and you know even some hip hop and stuff like that and only because maybe because I didn't listen to it for so many years, but I needed some fresh ears and I needed something to kind of motivate me. And I'm finding, some stuff outside of the genre that I'm comfortable in is the stuff that's motivating me right now. And I've had to, because rock, like a lot of the heavy rock to me right now is feeling watered down, and not any bands in particular. So I don't want to get on that train where I'm shit talking other bands. I'm just saying there's stuff. It's nothing really new has come out in the last little while for me that has moved me in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I can understand that. I don't pay attention myself to much of the mainstream. I like independent artists because you can find a world of creativity and a lot of talented people. So you find some you like and you find some that just aren't for you, and that's fine. That's quite all right.
Right. But people shouldn't be afraid to not like something, or,
Right.
be afraid to have an opinion on something that doesn't agree with a popular one.
Right.
Right?
And fans, I want to make sure, just to make sure you're clear on where we're going with this. It's okay if you find something that you're not into. If it's not your thing, that's fine. It might be somebody others, but you don't have to be negative and attack someone and crap on someone
Right.
just because there's a difference of preference.
Right. And I got really bad for that. Like, even in the last little while, I've had to pull myself back because, and it had to do with myself, right? Like, my own way of thinking, and I had to kind of own that. But, when I was talking about bands I didn't particularly like, the way it was coming off was almost like that, attacking. And I wasn't like that before, but it's like I was so uninspired by what was going on around me that the way I was approaching it was assholeish, right? And I didn't, and I had to pull back from that because, I don't like to shit on bands that are doing what they love. I really don't, because there's a lot of people that don't like us either.
Right.
And that's cool. And we're not going to be for everybody. And I can tell you, like, if you don't like certain bands, like if you don't like we don't sound like these bands, but when you listen to us, you can tell who we listen to. I don't think it's a big secret, right? So if you don't like bands like Alice in Chains, or like, later Skid Row, or bands like that, 94 Motley Crue, or elements of like Pantera at times, you're not gonna like us, and that's okay. But don't humor me. Like, I don't want people around me, if they want to support us, that's great, but they don't have to tell me it's awesome if they don't like it. And I'm cool with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way it should be. And I'm glad you brought that up too, because when I was listening to some of your work last night as I was doing my homework, I was detecting an Alice in Chains influence in the work you guys do, especially in your vocals when you're singing. I detected some Alice in Chains influence in there, and I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, Alice in Chains to me, like, Lane Staley to me is God. Like, he was the guy for me, and I think it had to do with his deliverance. Like, there's very few artists that can actually make me cry when they sing, and he's one of them. Like, when you can actually hear somebody's pain. Like, I can hear that man's pain. Well, I could before he passed away, and I still hear it when I listen to it. And when it comes to bands that I love, okay, like, to me, there's like Alice in Chains and Faith No More and Pantera and Blind Melon and the first 4 albums by The Used, Devin Townsend. Like, to me, those guys, it's hard for me to see outside of those guys because they did something. So at the time, what they were doing was like nobody else.
Yeah, and it seemed like they connected with you. You resonated a lot with what they were trying to say and what they were doing.
Right. And when that happens, those are the things that motivate me. I remember seeing Pantera by accident when I was 15 years old. And I walked into a show I went to see Skid Row, and Pantera were opening, and they just come out. And don't get me wrong, Skid Row put on a great show, but I could have cared less about anything after I saw Pantera. And that was the beginning. Like, I was already in a band at the time, but that was when I was like, I want that. That what they have is something I had never seen before.
Right.
And no band to this very day for me has ever touched that live. And I've seen Pantera 3 or 4 times, and nothing will. And even the reunion, like, I think it's a great thing that they're bringing that music to a live feel again, for people to actually experience it. If they record anything, as a fan, I'd be very offended. But they got the right guys, I think, to do that. Like Charlie and Zach will be perfect to share the music.
Yeah.
But if they write anything under Pantera, dude, as a fan, I'm gonna lose my shit.
I don't think they will, but I think this reunion thing it's to pay homage.
Yeah.
And to pay respect and tribute to Vinny and Dime and the legacy of the band. So I think that's what they're doing, and I think that's great.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Because people need to see that. Like, if you haven't seen, like I said, I didn't even know of Pantera until I saw them live. And when I heard their music, I went and bought the albums, right? Back when you bought albums. And I bought them and I fell in love with them. Like, especially by the time it got to The Great Southern Trendkill, it's one of my favorite albums in the world, and that's my favorite Pantera album. And
Yeah,
I just, to be able to hear some songs like that, like I'm actually looking forward to hearing Drag the Waters live, you know, maybe Floods, things like that. I would love to hear that stuff live. And Zach and Dime were buddies. So I think that's, what better way to get your best friend to play your shit when you're dead, you
right.
know?
Who better
I think
to
it's a
do
great.
it to honor you too? Who knows you better?
Well, who did like Pantera? They released an album at the height of grunge that was #1 on Billboard. Who's done that?
No one.
You celebrate that shit. You don't forget that stuff.
No. It's an accomplishment. It's a game changer, It's showing the world that no matter what genre you're in, if people love it and it's moving people and people like it and it gets to that point, you've done something right.
Right. And that is the thing. If you're like, you don't have to convince somebody that they're feeling your music. You don't
Right.
have to
You'll
talk
know.
somebody into feeling your music. The last show we played, not the last show, we played last night, no, the night before. I barely slept since the last show just because but a couple shows before that, we played a packed house at a big venue. And, when I was looking down and I seen people I didn't know singing the songs, right?
Yeah.
And now there's no better feeling than that, and so, you don't I didn't have to convince those people to feel that music, and
Right.
that's what it's about to me. Like, to resonate with someone, for someone to kind of gravitate towards what we're doing, maybe hear something I'm saying in my lyrics and go like, I know exactly how he feels. Like the first time I heard I Wonder by Blind Melon, right? That was the first time in my life that I knew that I wasn't alone. Somebody else felt exactly the same way I did,
Yeah.
and that's the only thing I want to do with music, is let somebody else know you're not the only person that feels like you,
That's
right?
that's kind of been a principle of music since the dawn
Yeah,
of time. It's a description of how you feel. It's telling a story. It's
yeah,
almost going to connect with someone, some way, somehow.
yeah.
And it's
And if not,
amazing.
you're not doing your job. Like it gets to a generic point, especially like, see I'm gonna here I go. But the problem I find is like, and it's not so prevalent now simply because labels aren't as important as they used to be.
Right.
Right? You can take a really nice picture, put your shit on Spotify, and you're up there right beside Marilyn Manson, and that's great. But the thing was in the past is producers would hear what was popular, or labels would hear what was popular. So say at one point, we'll use Alice in Chains as an example. So now Alice in Chains is out, they're touring, they're selling millions of records. Now the label wants every band to sound like Alice in Chains. Problem is though, you're a year or two too late. So they
Right.
round up all these bands and start honing them in to sound like the band that's selling a lot of albums or getting a lot of streams or whatever they're doing. So then it just becomes saturated and watered down, and it doesn't matter anymore. Right. And then all these bands are just out there and it's boring. Right. And what do you do from there?
Right.
So it's like, nobody's relating to it because it all sounds the same,
Right.
and then they get lost in the shuffle. Like, I remember, when the Korn thing was going on, the new metal stuff, right? And, Korn come out, and I remember being blown away. Nobody sounded like Korn. Korn were one of those bands that pretty much started a new genre of music,
Right.
and then every band come out and started sounding like Korn, and then everybody wanted to sing about how they were raped by their father, and everybody wanted to sing about all these problems in the world, and music just got really fucking dark for a long time,
Yeah, it
right?
did. Yeah, it did.
And it, all of a sudden it wasn't cool to like sex, drugs, and rock and roll and chicks and cars, and all of a sudden you had to have some sort of trauma
Yeah.
to love music, or to be looked at as any kind of serious musician. And it was like, the fun really got sucked out of it. And that's not to take away, because I love Korn, right? And I
Yeah.
love them still to this day. I think they're an amazing band. But it's like, I miss misogyny in music. And I know that's a horrible thing to say, but I miss that kind of stuff in it. I miss being politically incorrect at times and being able to do that. And I miss being afraid to have an honest opinion in music. And I don't mean about music, I mean about the message in music.
Right.
And I think it's really shitty that that's being taken from us. And, and I've said this before too. Like, I read an interview with Corey Taylor, and he said, when everything matters, eventually nothing will. And it sticks with me. And I say it often because it's becoming that. Right.
Yeah.
It's just turning into a place where, this people being afraid to have an opinion other than the popular one. They're being
Yeah.
ridiculed, shamed. Social justice warriors are talking them in circles and making them feel shitty for having a different opinion. And you don't have to fight every day. You can have a good day and have something off that grid. It doesn't
Right.
always have to be a social fight. You
Right.
know, I want to, like, I listen to music to get out of myself, right? I
Right.
don't want to deal with, everyday problems sometimes. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong, when you're in the business, you do get the sex, the drugs, and the rock and roll, right? But
Right.
when I first got into music, it wasn't as tangible. It became very tangible, but at first it wasn't. So when I was hearing about that, when I'm 11 years old and I see Vince Neil go like that at a stadium show and the whole stadium does that with him, and I'm going, I want that. That's the shit right there. You know, he's singing to this very attractive woman in the video, and I'm going, yes. I'm a kid and I'm thinking this is wonderful stuff. That's superhero shit to me,
Right.
right? That gave
Well,
me something to strive for, something I wanted,
it,
right? I
it
didn't
was
want
a
to hear about some guy.
larger than life connection.
Right. I don't want to hear some guy wanting to die in every song. I
Right.
just don't, right? Like, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I need to feel that too, but I don't want to hear that every time I put something in my playlist, right?
Right.
You
Right. And
know,
I see what you're saying about that. I mean, it's a hell of an analogy to go from sex, drugs, and rock and roll to Thorazine, therapy, and Kevorkian. So it's
right?
definitely been a drastic change, and
It
I
seems to be coming back though. Like, we just recently in an interview or a magazine story, we got called uh NWOCR music, and I had to look it up. That's how uncool I am. I had to Google that, and it was the new wave of classic rock. So apparently that whole thing is coming back, which is great for us because, don't get me wrong, I tackle some pretty serious subject matter, but I don't lose sight of wanting to have fun up there, man. Like, I just want people to have a good time when they come. I don't want you to leave depressed and like, fuck my life.
right.
Wow, I have a problem too. I want to,
Yeah.
at the end of it, I want somebody to go, wow, somebody got through that, you
Right.
know?
Right. And that's the whole point of going to a show, It's like to escape the world and your problems, to go have fun, clear your mind. And, sometimes people walk into a rock show and they think they see mosh pits and all this anger and all that it's really violent and all that. And I'm like, they couldn't be farther from the truth, because what you're seeing are people letting out excess of energy that's been plaguing them in a constructive way. Yes, people are pushing and shoving, and yes, maybe some fists are flying and elbows are too.
But
But
you know
there
what you're walking into.
yeah, but yeah, exactly. You know what you're walking into, and there's like people obey the rules of the pit 99% of the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there always is a great camaraderie among people in
Yeah.
environments like that. And I'm glad you guys like to have fun and you want to bring that element, which kind of brings me to my next question about some of the songs you guys have made. And I'm
Yeah.
going to tackle the first one. My favorite so far is Like a Zombie. How did you guys come up with this?
Okay. So I my daughter, when she was younger, she wouldn't watch any horror movies. Like I used to, I like to freak my kid out, and I don't know why. It's just because I'm that dad, right? I want to watch scary movies and scare the shit out of her and just have fun with it, right? But
Right.
she wasn't having it. And I finally talked her into, when she was 8 years old. I talked her into watching The Walking Dead, and it really it really freaked her out. So down the road from where I live, there's a cemetery on the main street, and we had to cut through it. And she was like 7 or 8 at the time. And as we're walking through, she starts going, like a zombie, like a zombie. And I just was like, holy shit, there's a hook, there's a hook. And I pulled her over, and I'm like, I turned my phone on record, and I'm like, sing into here. Let's do that into here so I don't forget it. Right. And then I wrote around that. So, that's where that song came from. And then we didn't record it till a couple of years ago, and she's 14 now. So that's how long that song's kind of been on the shelf. Right.
Wow.
but we when we finally recorded it, it really came to life, and so she really likes it when we play that one because you know, she's got a little writing credit at 14. She wrote the chorus. But yeah, and it, you know, that song just, you know, like a zombie walking around, you know, in a drug fueled stupor for your whole life, like I was for years and years and years. And, you know, just talking about, you know, if you read the lyrics just about that, like, you know, being a recovering drug addict, you know, I walked around for years in a stupor, and that's kind of what that song touches on, right? So, yeah.
So she helped you guys kind of like direct the single, but it was also a great thing too because she started a song that's actually going to help people who are stuck in that rut too without
Yeah,
knowing it.
yeah, I hope so because like I said, that song's really close to me in that regard. It was one of the first times once I got out of treatment that I got to really open up about how that made me feel at the time. And you know, at the end, you know, again at the end of the song, you know, by the time it's all done, it's a high energy, it's a banger, right? So you're not sitting there in a sad state going like, oh, the guy was on drugs, you know. It's like, no, it's like it's powerful, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And it's a great song. And I guess the saying is true, out of the mouths of babes.
Yeah, right, right. Exactly. Exactly.
You know, these guys, I mean, like I said, I checked out a couple more of your songs. I'm like, I like your work. It's not every song is the same. There's always something very new and creative with each and every one of them. So I do appreciate the new things you're trying.
Right. Well, wait till you hear the new stuff because we're in the process right now. We're just wrapping up the writing for the next record, right? And it is like next level. And the cool thing that I can say right now is anything that you think you know about us, it's going to change after this album comes out.
Nice.
Right? And it's you know, it's hookier in the choruses and like in the verses and stuff. And my producer, Sean Gregory, we've been working with him since day one. He's really pulling away from a lot of the screaming. Like he wants to really get out of that because he finds it's overdone. So we're gonna keep that down to, you know, to where it's needed. You know, not just like because we're not as angry, I guess, at this point. You know, and we're really honing in our songwriting craft. And the first album, you know, I started writing that before I had this incarnation of the band, right? And so some of those songs have been sitting for a long time. This is the first time the four of us as a unit have sat down and wrote a full album, right? There's a couple tracks on it that are from a little bit before, but it's because, you know, the label thought they were really good songs and wanted us to include them. And but other than that, everything else is like brand new. So fans of the band, like that have known us for as long as Valyear has been together, which is 7 or 8 years now at this point. And this Carnation's only been about three, a little over three, and this is the real version of this band as far as I'm concerned. But they like it's just it's very exciting where it's going, and to have these guys input is off the chain. You know, they bring so much to this, and they changed everything sonically with the band. And so yeah, so where I like the songs are just off the hook right now, and I'm so excited about them.
Yeah, that sounds like it's gonna be, and I'm anxious to hear it now. I want to do
I'll let you hear
something.
some pre-pro.
Okay, cool. I'm looking forward to it. I want to do something new today
Sure.
because we always talk about band singles and the meetings and things like that and how fans connect. So I want to try something new today.
Okay.
If a fan was to come up to you and ask you, what song of yours would you recommend to help inspire people to be different and push forward in life and achieve their goals no matter what someone says, what song would it be?
Oh, like in general or mine or like anybody's?
Yours. What song that Valyear wrote?
Mm. Wow. What would inspire? Oh, that's actually we haven't recorded it yet, but it's a song we just we've been incorporating into our live set. It's called Pale Face. And the reason why I picked that one right now is because that song came together. I was given the music and lyrically it came together in about 15 minutes.
Okay.
And basically it is about being there for someone who can't be there for themselves. Right?
Awesome.
Like
Awesome.
I have to, you know, I've been on the you know, I've watched people die by their own hands and take the long, ugly road to death through drugs. And that song was really close to me, watching someone very close to me do exactly that. And those lyrics came by, and it's about being able to reach out to someone regardless of how much they may be hurting you in what they're doing. Right.
Absolutely.
And so that would
Absolutely.
be the one. So when that watch for that one, there's actually a live version of it on YouTube. Right.
Very cool to know.
Yeah. So I'm
So
going to be pulling it soon because so listen to it soon because I'm going to be pulling it before the album starts, before we start recording the album.
that's
Right.
awesome. Yeah.
So, yeah. But that would be the one because it really hits hard and it hits close to home for me. So
Awesome. Well,
yeah.
fans, I can't believe how fast time is flying by because we start getting into really good conversations. And Chad, I'm sure you know what I mean. Time just flies by.
Yeah, it sure does. And there's no shortage of words for Chatty B.
Yeah. Yeah. If this is a documentary or something like that, then yeah, this would be a couple multiple parts. But this is just a showcase. So
Yeah.
for
Well,
all
we'll
our
do it
new,
again.
yeah, absolutely. For all our new listeners out there and people who have not heard Valyear, how can they find you guys or connect, be able to be a supporter and get down with your music?
Well, we're on Facebook, facebook.com/Valyear Band. You can add me personally, Chad Valyear, on Facebook. We're on Spotify, Apple, all the streaming sites, YouTube. Our videos are posted on our homepage, Valyear Band, or on the Wormhole Death page. They have our videos up too. Just type in the name in YouTube, Valyear, and every streaming site we're on. So yeah, please. And if you want merch, you can PM us personally. We can work on getting you merch wherever you are. We have lots of it. So we're ready. Like whatever you guys want, however you guys want to hear, just type in the name and we'll get to you. I promise.
That is awesome. And I
Yes,
love seeing
sir.
people make that kind of commitment to connecting with their fan base. That really means a
Dude,
lot.
without them, there's no us, you
That's
know?
exactly right. That's exactly
So
right.
I'll
Is
do
there,
whatever it takes to stay connected with our people.
yeah, that's how it should be. I wish
Yes,
everybody
sir.
paid attention to that more.
Agreed.
Before we go, we do have this little special thing we do called The Floor is Yours. And this is a time if you want to send a personal message out of anything you would like to say to someone, what would you like to tell them?
What I would like to say is you're never too old. It's never too late. Everything is temporary. And as long as you persevere, you'll get through it. So anybody who's struggling right now, whether it's with mental health, addiction, any fitness, taking your life back in any way, shape, or form, keep at it. I'm proud of you. You got this.
I like you, Chad. You're a cool dude.
Thanks, man. So are you.
Well, we try. Well, fans, that's all the time we got for today. And this has been a lot of fun. He told you how to find them, find the band. I like their work. I'm a metalhead. I like rock, things like that. And, you know, like you said, you know, to each their own. You know, some songs you're going to like, some songs you may not, but that's okay.
Right.
But the fact that you're giving it time, that shows a lot of respect and appreciation to the hard work guys like Chad put into their work.
Yes, sir.
Well, until then, fans, this is all the time we got today on the Stoverload Music Podcast Showcase. This has been my awesome rocking guest, Mr. Chad Valyear. We'll see you guys soon. In the meantime, we're out.